Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. And here we go again, another organisation in Call of Duty doing a tier list roster type discussion video for some of the rosters for next year. And the discussion for the Los Angeles Thieves guys on the OpTic team and some other rosters especially, I thought was particularly interesting. Very much intrigued to get your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Like if you guys enjoyed the video, subscribe if you were new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. Really up to the channel, thank you very much indeed for doing that. First of all, I thought this is funny from Gersh. I mean, this is a meme that's been going around the last few days. Pairing it with this image of Ben, it just does work particularly well. This I thought was interesting as well, because we know full well that despite Mutineers not necessarily building what we thought was the best roster for next year, their social media game is particularly good. Dom Gardner announces right here, today is my last day with Misfits, Mayhem and the Mutineers. So Florida Mayhem, I'm pretty sure they're Overwatch League team or whatever, and you know, Mutineers of course Call of Duty stuff, and Misfits is the organisation that kind of goes across the both of them. It feels impossible for me to summarise everything I've learned and experienced since 2017. Be forever grateful and appreciate everyone at this org. He's moving on to Cloud9, so definitely well, impressive stuff, well played indeed. And well, this I thought was interesting in discussion from the Reddit though, because there was some talk about like, yes, Mutineers are a really good social presence, letting this guy go, like is that going to reduce the quality of that or whatever? But as Chris Whiteley just kind of describes, they've got 4 people doing banger social content, so it doesn't seem like it's going to take a particularly big dip. But as he discusses right here, all I'll say is some of the players we've brought in that absolutely shines. Certainly true, right? Florida have done a great job in picking up diamonds in the rough and picking up players that really maybe no one else was considering and making them great talents. Like Neptune, of course, was a dominant force, and now he's gone on to New York and not really sure. Well, obviously a lot of people would say, why would you let him go, for example? I imagine they had to pay a lot of money for that type of move, but it remains to be seen if we'll ever know about that. Awakening, of course, was a great pickup and proved to be so during Modern Warfare. Frosty as well from Halo, but will their luck run out, I suppose, this season with some of the pickups they're making, because their team of Awakening, Skies, Dav, Paddy and Havoc does not seem to be able to light the world on fire, at least right now, but maybe they'll prove us all wrong once again. But they didn't necessarily do that this season with the performances they had. This also from Lionman, I thought, I mean, it was kind of funny when people were putting this on Reddit. There were some other ones as well, so he wasn't just taking bad shots at Awakening, and it's not even shots really, you're just making a LAN card at the end of the day. Only 4 series that Awakening in Florida played on LAN, but yeah, wasn't really pretty, right, given we looked at Awakening being like a 97 overall during Modern Warfare, to being like a pretty solid overall this season at the end of the league on LAN, like wasn't looking too pretty, right? There's been a lot of talk about Awakening in the last several days. Can he perform this season on an SMG like he'll pretty much have to do? That of course does that well, definitely up in the air right now, but even in the game mode he has a decent KD, like his kills per 10 minute, objective per 10 minutes, not exactly great, so definitely feels like Awakening maybe needs to switch up in his gameplay, or maybe like Skies was just taking all the kills, because Skies was a pretty dominant force towards the end of the year in fairness. On the other side of things, of course, you had Neptune, who was particularly good the entire season, especially in Search and Destroy towards the end. I mean, look at this, right, 99 in terms of kills per hour, like he's in the purple, same with average damage around a 1.36 on LAN, so of course, look, he only played a few series, only played a few Search and Destroys, and I mean, their results on LAN were pretty terrible, to be honest. They kept losing to like this pickup New York team or whatever New York were running with. It just wasn't great, but Neptune seemingly moving on to New York, at least of course not been confirmed as of yet, but I suppose we will see here over the coming days. This then from Los Angeles Thieves, they confirmed a little bit ago what their roster is going to be. Interestingly, I looked up their Twitter to see if I could find a video, like at least a tweet linking to the video they did, but for some reason they haven't even tweeted since the start of this month, so not really sure what's going on over there in terms of social media coverage, but still, they do a video. It's kind of, this is the classic type stuff. It's not really quite a tier list ranking, they basically just give their thoughts on the rosters, but it's still very interesting, because of course last title, we saw that OpTic did some things with the tier list that they did for the players, then for the teams, and certainly that came back to bite them, you could argue to some degree, but also, also some of the players got pretty frustrated, like when Dashy was calling Clayster a C-tier player and stuff like this. It was very entertaining. I wonder if they'll do that again, but still, Los Angeles Thieves aren't going to shy away from a challenge like this. They're looking at all the rosters which are either confirmed or rumoured right now, and kind of breaking down their thoughts on these individual teams. It's especially interesting for guys like Envoy, right, who have been part of OpTic the previous title, and also for Kenny, right, who's looking at Slasher and Co. over at Los Angeles Guerrillas, and thinking what they might potentially accomplish, because Nature was kind of talking towards the end of the video that, yeah, when this team was initially put together, Kenny, Octane, Drazah, and Envoy, like, it seems on paper like it could easily be a top 3 team, but when you look at some of these other rosters being formed, it's far from easy to say that's going to be the case. So I'll share a couple of clips on stream right here from what Envoy has to say on the OpTic guys, and Octane as well, right, about the lack of leadership they might potentially have, and similar issues potentially recurring with last title. Also Los Angeles Guerrillas and potentially the egos on that team taking things out, and Seattle Surge and Octane saying, yes, if you give Accuracy the reins, he should be able to make it work.
From somebody who never played against Shotzzy or Illy and never got to like watch them play much, how do you think this roster will come together?
I think on paper, they're like one of the most talented rosters, but I still think, like, after being there for 2 years, I think some of the problems that we had as a team is gonna like fall onto them again. But that's up to them to just, decide if they're gonna change things this year or how they're gonna be as a team. That's just like, preseason thoughts.
I think this is going straight to Reddit.
I mean, this entire video, I think that's what we're trying to do, guys. We need some views.
Yeah, I mean, the team's gross. Don't get me wrong, but I kind of in the same boat as Dylan. He said that a lot of the issues that they had last season might fall on this team because there isn't like an overarching leader that I don't see these 4 players and I immediately think like this person is going to take the reins. So, I mean, I feel like it would have to be Seth just off of, the veteran leadership role that he's had, coming off arguably one of his best games that he's ever had as well. So,
or like a top 3 team, or they're going to just be absolutely atrocious. I just don't know which. LA Guerrillas, Slasher, Gunless, Asim, and Huke.
I agree on that. I mean, I play Austin probably the most out of anybody, I think, actually. I think so. Yeah, I think I play with Austin the most out of any player. I know Austin is. A lot of people know how Pierce is. I just think it's more so just like ego issues with them. I mean, if they let Austin just lead the team, I think they can be really, really good. But at the same time, people want to put in their input, but I think that's what a lot of teams. That's why I think our team's really well-rounded. I feel like our team can actually, from a personality standpoint, I feel like we fit together like perfect. I think when you look at this team, the number one thing that everyone thinks about is like Lamar versus Sib, because Sib is really talented, like insanely high skill ceiling challenger player, and everyone argued that he should be in the league for a couple of years now, but he has an attitude issue, and that's like very well known. So I think that like very similar to LAG, if like him and Lamar clash, it depends like how that is going to play out. I don't think Lamar is going to put up with it at all, like from knowing Lamar and how long he's been around. I don't think he's going to put up with it. So it depends on how that dynamic works.
So this is what they brought up on screen towards the end, right? Kind of Nature was looking at which teams in the game have a good potential to actually win a title. I think, to be honest, you've got to throw Minnesota Rokkr in here as well, right? Because they won a title this past year, and none of these other teams, well, not all of these other teams, but for example, some of the new teams that are forming have not had that privilege yet of actually lifting a trophy, even though sometimes the CDL doesn't even give you a trophy at these events. But still, Los Angeles Guerrillas, on paper, they should be competitive. Dallas Empire and OpTic, whatever they're doing, certainly should be the case. New York, like obviously FaZe, Ultra as well, are certainly going to be up there again, at least you would think so. So many scary teams. But definitely interesting, I think, what Envoy had to say, for example, on OpTic, because he talked a while ago now about the fact that like when they stopped streaming, it seemed like they cared less, right? They didn't really have the attitude that was pushing them in the right direction, didn't quite have the weight behind them, and also like the leadership was a bit of a question at times. And that, of course, is the question now with Formal retiring. Like, Scump's never really been a leader, to be honest. So, who steps up in that sense, right? Like, does Scump step up? Does Illy have to step up into that role? Because there was a lot of talk last year about Envoy, and it was kind of Envoy was doing a lot of the shot calling, but then Formal was kind of like the vocal leader in some senses in some of the Respawn game modes. So they've kind of lost both of those pieces, this new OpTic team. So how do they make that work? Is Illy going to step up and call some shots in Search and Destroy? That's what Zuma was discussing. Is Scump going to actually have to proper step into a leadership role that he's never really had to do in his career? Which is definitely an interesting question mark. And they kind of just, considering that maybe the similar problems that OpTic had last year in terms of attitude and stuff, will they come back again? Not necessarily attitude, but like, just turning up to practice on time and putting in the hours that maybe OpTic don't do so much and didn't do last year, certainly, compared to some of these other rosters in the league. So that is certainly a bit of a question mark. Los Angeles Guerrillas as well, I think they're kind of right in their assessment that either they'll click and they'll be really good, or they'll just fall by the wayside and things will explode. I honestly think it's more likely to be the former, just because of the chemistry that those guys seem to have. They seem to get on really well. They seem to have matured a lot over the last few years. So if anything, I think the Los Angeles Guerrillas have more potential than Los Angeles Thieves. I'm not sold on the Los Angeles Thieves lineup quite as of yet. And there's a lot of talk right now about underrated, overrated teams going into Call of Duty Vanguard. I thought this was quite an interesting post right here. I'm sure we'll talk about this in more detail when everything does get confirmed. But kind of saying like overrated Rokkr, I think a lot of people in this thread actually said Rokkr might be quite underrated, right? Because a lot of people are saying Rokkr have been passed up by a lot of these other teams, but still Rokkr should have potential to win an event, and maybe this game even suits them better than previous titles. So if anything, like I said, overrated were Rokkr at the start of last season, and I think that was probably true. But this year, if anything, I think they might be getting somewhat underrated. London, I think certainly I want to put them in the underrated category. I'm kind of optimistic about this London team this time, but in fairness, I've been optimistic about the London teams for the last 2 years, and it hasn't really worked out. So hopefully that's the case. But certainly something I'm sure we can discuss. I think if anything, Los Angeles Thieves might be getting somewhat overrated right now, because I think people are putting them top 3, top 4, but I'm not necessarily convinced that's going to be the case. There's a lot of good lineups up there, no doubt about that one. This also from the oddly, right, given we were on the discussion of Minnesota Rokkr and the potential that they have going into next cycle, if there's one player that comes to mind when you hear Clutch, like, what do you guys think about when you hear Clutch player? Like, to me, there's a couple that come to mind. The key one, I suppose, well, one of them would be Damon Barlow. I think he's got to be right up there for our Call of Duty history, but also it's got to be attached, right? As Magic says in reply, and Minnesota Rokkr reply with, if there's one guy you want in a 1 versus 1 that maybe isn't Karma, because Karma's particularly good in 1v1s and those type of situations, and that doesn't seem to get phased by the pressure at all, but attached is that other guy, right? He always seems to find a way to get his get his slice of the pie, people were saying as well, like win a championship every year, but also you put him in a 1v1, he seems like he's winning like 60-70% of them, which of course is very impressive indeed. So yeah, Clutch player, I might give it to attached just about. This from Lion, of course, given we were on the discussion from Los Angeles Thieves, Los Angeles Guerrillas. This was his performance on LAN at the end of the year. So of course they played 5 matches. He had a 1-in-4 record. Like they kind of got destroyed like at Los Angeles Thieves. They just weren't a good team. But Slasher, at least statistically, really did turn up on LAN. And you could notice, well, a noticeable difference, similarly to Octane, really coming from online to LAN. Like I mean, it's a 1.35 in hardpoint, pretty much even in control. Search and Destroy, very solid as well. In terms of kills and damage as well, like it's not just KD. Like in terms of damage, he's putting out pretty impressive. So no doubt I think Slasher could be a force once again at this upcoming year. And well, just to finish off with a brief moment from this, because I'm sure a lot of you guys who might be relatively new to the scene, like who have come in the last few titles, haven't really watched Zuma compete at a particularly high level, because Zuma was great in World War II. I think his best titles were probably World War II and also back in Advanced Warfare. This is probably when he was maybe at his best. Like he was considered, at least for a time, the best SMG in the game, or at least right up there. Like this clip, especially on Biolab, is absolutely insane. So many great moments really from Zuma throughout his career. And I mean, yeah, this is just like, I think where he was at his best, right? And this is probably one of the reasons why he says Advanced Warfare is that one of his favorite titles, because he won a lot of events on this game, but also, was pretty ridiculous at it as well. He's just finessing these guys all around the park. And well, yes, solo as well. But very much intrigued to get your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, I'd greatly appreciate a like on the video. Really upset the YouTube button on like you enjoy this content. Other people like you may enjoy this content as well. And I've grown the competitive Call of Duty community. Thanks for watching as always. Take care. And I will see you next time.